Welcome to the Weird Warriors podcast. I'm Max.
I'm Rich.
Hey, and on this podcast, we will be covering the Weird War Tales comic book series that, was published by DC Comics from 1971 to, you guessed it, 1983. On this episode that you are listening to right now, we're going to take a look at Weird War Tales number 80. But first, Rich, you got anything to share with the crowd here?
Yes, I do. Last time I called it a Weird War Tales house ad for my ad, and it was wondered if it carried over into any other books. I was on record for saying I doubted it wouldn't be. So I did me things and checked out the other DC war books for that time period. Men of War, GI Combat, Sergeant Rock, and Unknown Soldier. Nothing notable in GI Combat, which is to be fair because it's a dollar book and may have had different rules. But in the other three books, I found an ad called Bombshell Battle Bulletin. It has Kubert art of a Jeep under shell fire and a dazed GI handing over a red package to an officer in a tent, followed by a GI with his feet up on a desk reading a comic book, and Sergeant Rock, Unknown Soldier, and Gravedigger looking at the reader. And they all take turns saying, "That's right. Now you can be sure you're getting every adventure of me and the Combat Happy Joe's Easy Company." And the Unknown Soldier says, "And of my missions behind enemy lines." And Gravedigger says, "And my one-man war against the Reich. Even get all three." Check the album. So, okay, looks like the WWT ad was a title-specific one. And for the record, Unknown Soldier 232, Sergeant Rock 332, and Men of War 20 all had Henbeck strips that weren't listed in Grand Comics database. Guess what? Yeah, all approved. Intel report. Escape, an ongoing series from Image Comics. Script by Rick Remender, art by Daniel Acuna, set in a brutal world of anthropomorphic animals. Milton Shaw is a battle-hardened bomber pilot, flying missions over a war-torn world ruled by a ruthless empire. But when his plane is shot out of the sky, Milton wakes up behind enemy lines in the smoldering ruins of a city he helped burn. And in less than 24 hours, his own side is dropping the big one to finish the job. Now injured, unarmed, and being hunted through enemy streets, Milton's only shot at escape comes from the unlikeliest place: a grieving father and his son, civilians shattered by the same fascist regime that rules this land with an iron claw. Enemies by blood, allies by circumstance. Together they'll have to fight their way out before the bomb drops and erases everything. And everyone. Cover detail. Art by Joe Kubert, 40 cents. Weird War Tales is blue on white on a yellow and orange background. In a flaming yellow and orange sky, a British Spitfire climbs, firing at a fanged skull in the clouds as claws reach for the plane. A banner in the lower right corner reads, "Would you dare challenge the Ring of Fire?" Cover date, October 1979. Date of release, July 3rd, 1979. Old Comics Man. Seen on eBay for anywhere between $6 and $195. Killjoy. The landing gear of a Spitfire is in front of the underwing air inlets, not behind them. CNC. I got to the script first, so I get first crack at the Johnny Cash Ring of Fire reference. Aha! Part of me really likes this cover. A British plane, not US or even German or Japanese, is the centerpiece, and the fanged skull with vertebrae and claws is real bad news. I'm even willing to forgive the mechanical Killjoy and the fighter, but the gunfire from the Spitfire blends in too well with the colors of the creature in the clouds. Even the tans and browns of the ground below more or less blend in. I get the whole idea is probably to create some manner of fire creature for the Ring of Fire reference, but it's all kind of too monochromatic for me. I like the physical art, but the colors drag this cover back down. Reluctantly, I'm just not feeling this one.
For the second time in a row, I'm going to leap a little bit to the defense of a cover that I would normally dump on. Yes, this cover is essentially dominated by one large image. Yes, the coloring, as Rich very fittingly pointed out, is practically monotone. And for that matter, all of Rich's issues with the cover are valid. You got the hastily sketched ball of earth below. That might as well not even be there. All of that is 100% valid. However, I still love this cover. It might just be based completely on the sheer bad acidness of that flaming skeleton and its evil clawed hands grasping for the oncoming aircraft. But the heart wants what the heart wants. Essentially, like Rich said, it's the drawing itself. The coloring is it is an absolute mistake to make everything just so bland and monochromatic. Honestly, I also think my affection for this cover owes mostly to the fact that I think it looks like a pretty great concept sketch for an Iron Maiden album cover. And what can I say? Sometimes I'm just an easy mark.
Eddie! Introduction page. Script by Paul Levitz, we think. Art by Romeo Tanghal. Death wears the uniform of an urban commando with a beret, scarf, and M16. A modern city is behind him, and fog rolls in as bats fly overhead. Trash and rats are in the foreground. Death says,
Not all the weird wars are fought between armies on fields of battle. In most wars, those behind the lines bear the curse as well. I am death, and I know this, for every victory and every defeat is a part of my plan. Listen carefully, and I shall tell you of one of the strangest heroes ever to fight in my wars.
no killjoy, comments and commendations. Spoiler alert for the first story in the book. Nothing says 1970s like sharply dressed thugs in the street with semi-automatic weapons. How many movies and TV shows had this going on back then? Suave punks. The fog-tattered banner overhead and jumping rat in front of death as he stands in the mud sells the scene, with an admittedly surprisingly undestroyed city in the background. Not as good as the last one, but you get extra points for the creative surprise here. I like.
Yeah, you can practically smell this intro page. I mean, yes, it smells like really old, cheap newsprint comic book paper, but you know what I'm trying to say. Muck and mist and rodentia abound. Tanghal gives this particular specter of death a bit more personality than most, with his casual body language, jaunty cap, and his thumbs stabbing out to the side like, get a load of this guy, as he mentions one of the strangest heroes ever to fight in his wars. I can even hear the sound effect that wasn't included as he pulls his right boot out of the sucking mud. The rats' heads all look a little bit horse-like, but for me, that just makes them even creepier. This is some great stuff.
First up, An Old Man's Profession. 7 pages. Script by Only Timer Steve Gerber. Art by favorite of the show, Jess Jodleman. 8 masked gang members wearing military-style uniforms storm into a restaurant wielding rifles, pistols, and submachine guns, and immediately start robbing the patrons of their valuables. While the others wear pickelhaubes, the commander wears an officer's cap and epaulets. You've encroached on our territory for dinner to gorge your fat faces amid the quaintness we call filth. All right then, do your slumming, but do it poor, defenseless, like we do. An old man in the back corner scoffs. Defenseless by behind. This commander strides over to his table. You want to play that back for me, old man? I don't gotta. I think you made my point, young fella. Put away your toys. Get out of here. What's her name, old man? You couldn't read it. Let it go, an old man. I like that. Maybe you want to know my name? Listen, you can leave your phone number if you want. I should care. Field Marshal Court of the Mongol Savages, the People's Army. Not this people. You're begging for an execution, old man. You know that? Court pulls the old timer to his feet. Shoot me, punch me, kick me, go kill me, go on. Protect the people. You know how long I've lived in this neighborhood without an M1? We didn't need no People's Army till you punks. Shut up! Court shouts, shoving the old man to the floor. Apologize, old man, and address me with the respect due my rank, or your dessert's coming wrapped in steel. The old man spits at his feet. That's what I think of your rank, tough guy. Court kicks him in the ribs. Think again, old man. I'm giving you a last chance. You're going to die if I don't see a change in attitude. I repent to a priest, not to no punk. Yeah, well, somebody better call one. You made your choice. Now die with it. Court shoots the old man 3 times and stands triumphant over the body. The people have claimed their vengeance. For tonight, you folks played smart. Don't forget what you saw. Stay where you are. Thus, Court and his troops disappear into the back streets, burrowing deep into the bowels of the city. As have become the custom, the authorities arrive late, though not perhaps as late as Court might have wished. Mr. Wolf slowly comes out of the coma he'd been in for days in the hospital, and a nurse rushes to assist him. You mustn't try to move, sir. The doctor was amazed you hung on as long as you weren't expected to. The doctor won't be the first one I've disappointed, he groaned. You know, I met some very interesting people in that, coma. Taught me a few things, made some promises. Nice people. He smiles and clenches the nurse's hand. Weeks pass. The old man's recovery progresses, and the Mongol savage's aspirations grow. Court addresses his men at their headquarters. Our defenses will hold. The police have been neutralized. Any rebellious elements removed. We own these blocks. We're the government. We're the law. Now it's time to enforce that law. In the name of the people, we... His rant is interrupted by a knock at the door. The sergeant-at-arms hurries to the peephole. It's the old man you shot at Cavelli's. Alive? Cripes, this I want to see. Let him in. Wolf enters holding a baseball bat. Smart move, old man. You came armed this time. I'm no dummy. I can learn. Better not to be defenseless, right? Last time I got turned into Swiss cheese. No more. So you figured a baseball bat. Nah, that's just in case. I'm relying on my friends. You know, I spent a long time flat on my back, cold as ice, dead to the world. And all that time I kept thinking about you, about my hatred of you, Court. And some pretty strange things can go on in a coma. It's like a journey through time, space. I decided I wanted to see you die. You got no right to live. You got no right to prey on people this way. So these gentlemen I met while I was away, they taught me how to summon them. I just gotta think is all. Behind Mr. Wolf materializes a ghostly army of samurai, Vikings, Spartans, ancient Egyptians, and many more. The stunned Mongol savages scramble for their weapons. The battle is brief but bloody, and when the clang of metal and the bristlings of gunfire have subsided, only 2 figures are left standing. How come they didn't trash me? Court stammers. On my insistence. All I ever asked for was a fair fight. Court raises his pistol and pulls the trigger, but it's empty. Oh my God. Mr. Wolf raises his baseball bat high. You got no God. You got nothing to accept what's coming to you. Good night, Mr. Field Marshal. And he brings the bat down on Court's skull with a sickening grunt. Mr. Wolf then stands over the bodies. For this, I should get a medal. I'll probably get life. What the hell? Blessed are the peacemakers. The end. Killjoy. Horned Viking helmets.
All right, comments and commendations for this, spoiler alert, awesome opening story. I'll say right away, I love the depiction of the host introducing this story. It's a little different. He looks like he has some flesh still clinging to his bones, like a zombie in the final stages of inevitable decay. The title logo's simplicity actually works too to balance the visually busy nature of the splash page right below it. Now, coming up after me here, Rich does a great job with the art callouts. So I'm going to focus on the writing, specifically that of the titular old man. His dialogue, as you just heard, is great throughout the story, especially in that final panel with the blessed are the peacemakers bit. I read that like a few times, just like, that's so cool. Like I could see that like happening in a movie right in front of me. As I was reading the story, I found myself at the same time imagining it as a better attempt to introduce the character of Kid Eternity to the DC Vertigo universe, better than the one that they tried in 1991. Kid Eternity, as some of you may know, was a character that debuted in Hit Comics number 25, published by Quality Comics back in 1942. When DC acquired the rights to pretty much every Quality Comics property, as they were suing Quality out of existence around 1956, they proceeded to just kind of sit on the character for a while. Now, as I mentioned, they published a 3-issue prestige miniseries by Grant Morrison and Duncan Fegredo in 1991, reimagining the character in a way that appealed enough to the emerging art house superhero audience of the time, enough to warrant an ongoing series that lasted for 16 issues between 1993 and 1994. Now, I'm a known huge fan of Morrison's Animal Man and Doom Patrol, but this take on Kid Eternity passed me by like a weak pocket of past gas on a windy day. Just didn't hook me. However, this story that opened this issue of Weird War Tales immediately started rewriting itself in my head as Old Man Eternity, wherein a geriatric Chris Freeman, Kid Eternity from Quality Comics, who did fight Nazis in his series back in the day. This old man version of Chris Freeman hasn't used his powers in decades, but the coma reawakens those powers, the ability to summon any figure from history or mythology just by shouting the word eternity, because as you also may know, Quality Comics published Shazam, Captain Marvel. So heroes with magic words was kind of a thing with them. So he gets his powers back in the coma, and he brings his fight to the new battlegrounds on the home front as Old Man Eternity. Now that series I would read. And yes, folks, this is how my brain works. Rich knows very well. There's a story going on and I am reading it, but there's another track in my head that opens up and something entirely different is going on. You get a little peek into that with this version, with this edition of Comments and Commendations on this episode. Coming back to it, as I'm trying real hard to do here, and a nod to the actual writing of this story, I give kudos to Gerber for making me look up this word, brissance. From the French, as Rich will pronounce for you later, there's a French word that's brisser, I think, which is break and shatter. It's the shattering capability of a high explosive determined mainly by its detonation pressure. Now, that word is used in one of the narrative captions in this story, and I had never heard it before. So Gerber hit me with a vocab word, all the while entertaining the heck out of me too and activating my ADD split personality. So this is a home run for me, folks. A great opening story in many ways.
Got a bit of an Ares callback from WWT1 of the redeployment issues. Gang violence! Got a bit of a Gran Torino vibe here too. All the bad guys wearing pickle haubes is a nice touch. Remember how they had such a big recurrence in the 60s and 70s for bad guys? 2 JJ issues in a row after not having seen him since issue 46. Steve Gerber does a hallmark job for a one and done. The way he crafts the back and forth between a bully with an overinflated sense of his own importance and an obvious World War II vet that will not freaking have it. I think the checkerboard tile in the restaurant makes the scene a bit too busy and dark, but that's pretty much my only artistic gripe. I'm just tossing the splash page in here for all of the above. Page 3, panel 2. The old timer spitting at court, the close-up of the face. I was killing Nazis in France, you want to be goose stepper. You don't scare me. 3 30-06 rounds at that range, and the old timer survived? Holy crap. Too mean to die, I guess. Panels 3 and 4, page 6, panel and panel of the ghost army arriving and the gangsters scrambling for their weapons is some real good stuff, as is the melee scene on the first panel of the next page and the finishing blow on panel 4. Mr. Wolf gave Court all of that swing. And the silhouetted dead on the next panel. One has a sword sticking out of him. And Court is in the foreground, eyes still open, blood on his forehead. Total win. Sadly, this is the last time we see Jodleman until the last time we see Jodleman, all the way out in issue 120.
Let's see if the considerable momentum of that opening story can be followed up with a story called Heads Up! It's only a 2-pager. Script is by Paul Kupperberg. Art by our good buddy Ruben Yandok. Synopsis for this brief little tale will take longer to read than it will take you to read the comic book story, and it goes like this. Enemy mortars rain down on the jungles outside of Da Nang, their incandescent glow making the night seem like day. PFC Dave Heller is cut off from his unit and finds cover in an apparently abandoned tunnel hewn from the hill by Viet Cong guerrillas. A direct hit by the entrance causes a cave-in, sealing him in. He has no choice but to go deeper into the tunnel. He sees a light and soon steps into some kind of shrine. A giant marble Buddha sits smiling, covered by dozens of smaller carved figures, seemingly tending to him. The only way out, blocked, Heller sits and smokes. considering his rather limited options, and soon comes to hate the constant stare of the statue's eyes. The smaller carvings crawling all over it creep him out. Days pass, and PFC Heller sought escape, digging frantically with whatever was available, his strength and K rations diminishing. That crazy statue's gonna drive me batty before I get out of here. No matter where I am, its eyes seem to follow me, and I can't stand it no more. I hate it. He takes his Thompson and smashes it against the statue's head, destroying it. And then a very unusual thing happens. With a scraping of hundreds of tiny feet across the earth's floor, scores of jade figurines descend on Dave Heller like an invading army of locusts. And like an army of locusts, they completely envelop their victim as he screams. Soon, silence once again reigns in the hidden cavern. Silence and the jade statue with a brand new head and new ever watchful eyes.
Oh, joy. Pretty sure our guys still weren't carrying Thompsons in Vietnam. And all those candles magically kept burning the entire time he was trapped in the shrine, eh? On one page, it's a marble statue, but on others, it's jade. I'm leaning towards jade because the colors made everything green. On one page, he's a PFC. On another, he's a private. Where's Paul Levitz? Comments and commendations. Now, this is another one I definitely remember from the original reading back in the day. That last panel is just so freaking creepy. A headless corpse is right there. I remember reading stories about our guys finding temples in Vietnam decorated with swastikas, and they'd go shoot them up, obviously ignorant of the fact that swastikas existed for thousands of years as a symbol of peace before the Nazis co-opted it. Not much else to add, but hey, a rare 2-page win.
Okay, so for me, the borderless splash panel, which uses the coloring to provide a kind of cameo-shaped border of its own, is just excellent work on the opening page. To Rich's point, I find that only the statue's eyes are ever referred to as marble in the story. However, when Heller says that the head doesn't even fit in with the jade body, it would have helped if the art supported that statement at all. I'm looking at it, the head sitting atop the statue before Heller's attack looks perfectly at home right where it is, thanks. I do love the idea of an army of jade minions always ensuring that the statue is complete. And I bet there's a few of them around keeping the candles lit too, Rich. They can move around and do whatever they want. It's tough to do a decent 2-pager and to make it actually creepy too. So I'm calling this one a hit, even if the host at the end leaves me with mixed feelings. But still, pretty damn good job, and it did creep me out.
Ever watchful eyes until the eyes rot.
Hey, maybe they'll coat them with marble. Those little guys have a lot of free time on their tiny little hands.
So the guy didn't see, he didn't see the little guys move in the days he was in there. So okay. So what do we got next here? Ring of Fire, the aforementioned cover story. 6 pages. Script by Bob Conager. There we go. Art by Rick Estrada. It happened every night now. Always the same way. RAF flight leader Denny Huntley's Spitfire limping across the English Channel after a wild dogfight over occupied France, bursting into flames under the relentless pounding of a black and white striped Messerschmitt. Flight leader Huntley's desperate cry for help gurgling in his throat as the savage flames melt his flesh to the charred bone, the flaming coffin hurling to the watery graveyard of the Channel. The nightmare was always the same, and Gwen Taylor wrenched herself from its bony figures with a smothered cry. Denny! She grabs the framed signed photo on her nightstand. Darling, if anything ever happened to you, I wouldn't want to live. But nightmares fade in the morning light, and soon Flight Leader Huntley's base near Folkestone. A ferry pilot arrives with a brand new Spitfire. Denny, darling! Gwen cries from the cockpit. She quickly climbs out and runs to embrace him. That's hardly a military greeting, Gwen. She throws herself into his arms and they kiss. When are you going to make me an honest woman, Flight Leader? As soon as the war's over and Jerry's driven back to Berlin, Lieutenant. I know how you frown on mixing combat and marriage, but I found my first wrinkle this morning. Marry me before I'm a spinster. To tell the truth, I plucked out my first gray hair today. We might as well marry before we're both tottering old graybeards. Free this evening? At that moment, the klaxon sounds. Pilots, scramble! Huntley hands a small box with a ring in it to Gwen. Jerry's on the way. Gotta scramble. Try this on for size till I get back. A wedding ring. We'll spend our honeymoon tonight at the beach of Brighton. She waves as the Spitfires climb into the sky. Until tonight. Gwen goes to operations and listens to the combat unfold over the radio. Denny explodes a mesher off the tail of another spit. Unexploded in my face. My controls are shot, but I can make it back. I have a date to be married. You're all invited to the wedding. Don't be late. Don't want my bride to be kept waiting at the altar. Within sight of Dover. Jerry in my tail. Mayday! Mayday! The sound of gunfire over an open mic. Gwen runs to the Spitfire she'd just delivered and takes off, headed to the fight at wave top level. She soon finds Denny's burning Spitfire with the black and white striped Messerschmitt from her horrible nightmare on his tail. But this is going to have a different ending. Hang on, Denny. I'm going to take that hood off your back. She thumbs the trigger, but nothing happens. She forgot. The guns hadn't been armed for a ferry flight. Denny, I'm never going to leave you, she screams before ramming the German fighter. Spitfire and Messerschmitt plunge into the deep of the channel. Lieutenant Gwen Taylor catapulted out of the wreckage, wheeling over and over like a ballerina in an underwater ballet of death. She comes to rest with her hand in her partner's, for all eternity, until the sea shall give up its dead. Killjoy History Minute. British women ferry pilots of World War II, known as ATA Girls, of the Air Transport Auxiliary, ATA, were 168 pioneer aviators who delivered over 140 types of 300,000 military aircraft, including Spitfires and Lancasters, from factories and repair shops to RAF bases. A civilian organization, pilots flew unarmed and frequently in poor weather, navigating by map and landmark. Several died in service. Overwhelmingly male, however, the ATA served from 1940 to 1945 and hosted pilots from around the world. I know the story says Taylor is a lieutenant, but I saw this, decided to share this because actually the WASPs were inspired by this organization, the American WASPs, women pilots. Moving on to the Killjoys, those are French roundels on the Spitfires, not RAF. And I know a specific bad guy has to be identified from the dream sequence. That's a World War I paint scheme. No one was flying around in World War II with a tricked out target like that. And this is the biggest one of all. I had to read the story a few times to make sure I hadn't missed anything. When Gwen dreamed of her fiancé being a skeleton lost under the waves, he died only minutes before in reality. The last two panels on page 6 of her body settling on the wreckage of a Spitfire and the ocean floor, and her hand resting in the skeletal hand of her lover, while admittedly a great scene, makes no sense here. The two pilots should have been drawn as freshly killed bodies and gotten the same love is eternal vibe that they were going for here.
Yeah, before I start comments and commendations, I gotta say, man, that detail completely escaped me. Now that you mentioned it in there, I'm like, oh yeah, how did it get skeletonized quite so fast?
Those 16 piranhas that live in the English Channel.
That was a pretty great point. So getting past that, I actually have another addition to my CNC that I thought of while Rich was reading this. This would have made a great military romance story for our Valentine's Day episode. It was written in very much the same style with like the breathless romance and the planned wedding and all that. Like I'm sitting there listening to you read the synopsis and I went, this would have been a good Valentine's Day one. As like I said, it even has that vibe in it. So, okay, my real comments and commendations for all you lucky listeners out there. Once again, Rich gets the point across with a lot of his art callouts. And a lot of them I would have said the same thing. So I'll give credit to instead the coloring. Yes, we all know that I like the use of what I refer to as mood coloring in comics. And this story makes great use of that technique, whose name I made up. It's kind of a cheat, really, but since I make the rules, I'm counting page 3's use of coloring as a background shortcut as part of this technique. With the sense of place having been firmly established on page 2, Estrada, who I'm assuming does the coloring because they don't credit colorists in this series, uses a different flat color to provide most of the backgrounds in each panel, going from light to dark green, then pink, then orange, and yellow before ending with a panel that does have more detailed background elements, but still uses wide swaths of the light green and pink from the earlier panels. It all keeps the eye interested and makes the panels feel distinct from one another, Me, likey. And I got to do a little bit of some real art call outs here. The aerial battle shots at the top of page 3 and the bottom of page 5 are awesome too. With the one on page 3 especially driving home the three-dimensional nature of airborne combat. There's no host at all here in this story, and the distinct lack of the kick-ass fiery skeleton in the sky from our cover is a bit of a demerit against it, but overall, I'm not mad at all. It was another great story in this issue.
Actually, the colorist is credited. Jerry Serp is listed on the bottom of the article. So,
oh, well, there we go. Jerry Serp. Good call. I didn't
hey,
notice it when I was reading through mine, and I guess I'm just used to them never saying who colors, or maybe I've never noticed. But hey, Jerry Serp, you're the man on this one. I liked
yeah.
it.
Well, we traditionally don't give any credit to the colorists. That's our bad. But you gotta take your cuts where you can get them. So it's been a minute since we've seen Bob Conger in the book, and I say, good day, sir. Flight leader Huntley's desperate cry for help gurgling in his throat as the savage flames melt his flesh to the charred bone, the flaming coffin hurtling to the watery grave of the channel. Oh, yeah. Folkestone, though misspelled with only one E, not two, is on the channel close to Dover, so the combat there would have been fierce. The unnamed base was almost certainly RAF Hawkinge, 2 miles to the north. I've been pretty hard on Estrada in the past, but I'm going to work with him here. The aircraft aren't perfect, but they're close enough I can at least tell what they're supposed to be. All of page 1 is good. The burning Spitfire breaking panel borders, Denny burning alive in the cockpit, and the wreck of the fighter sitting on the black ocean floor. Panel 4 and 5 on the next page of a jubilant Gwen running to greet her beau on the tarmac after she lands, and he's admonishing her greeting. He's a dapper bloke, isn't he? With that sharp blonde mustache. I actually called a few of these panels. The kiss panel on page 3 belongs in one of our aforementioned Valentine's Day episodes. A passionate embrace. She's kicking one leg up behind her, and the other pilot's right there grinning like an idiot and pointing. Panel 4. A wedding ring. We'll spend our honeymoon tonight at the beach at Brighton. All together now. No, you won't. He's got something to live for, so now he's going to get killed. Page 4, panels 1 and 2. Gwen listening to the radio as the Spitfires tear into the Germans. And the awesome perspective on page 5, panels 4 and 5 of Gwen swooping to the rescue only to realize her guns were empty. And the previously mentioned underwater eternity scene. I think Estrada's growing on me. Another win.
Up next, I'm getting off easy here, people, and so are you, because the thing I'm talking about is a page long. It's called Technology, 13th Century Style. Script is by Only Timer, the legendary Murray Boltinoff. Art by another Only Timer legend, Sid Green. Summing up this page for you would sound a little something like this. 2 Soviet officers meet at headquarters, and one starts opening a wrapped box. I do not understand, Powell. We have a list of enemy agents which we must get to our leaders, and you are excited about a gift which arrives in the mail. Not a gift, Victor. A message. Yes, we must hurry this information to the Kremlin. But have you thought of how? The Americans listen to our radio messages day and night. Whenever we send a courier, he is picked up before he leaves the city. But this time, they will not stop our message. Powell opens up the box and pulls out a white pigeon. Poor thing, sitting there in a box this whole time? All right. I am a pigeon fancier, Victor. This bird, our messenger, will carry the list straight to my own home where our people are waiting at this very moment. For once, we have fooled their intelligence people. They are too sophisticated for this, Victor. There is no countermeasure for a carrier pigeon. This time, we have succeeded in foiling them, Victor. Ha ha ha! What a surprise they will have on their faces. Ha 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 ha! Powell opens the window and tosses the pigeon out. He doesn't hear the American falconer on a nearby hilltop emit a high-pitched whistle. Nor does he see the falcon the whistle summoned dive straight on to the hapless pigeon. The end of the story. The end of the pigeon.
No killjoys, CNC. This gives me the old Battle album vibes, a one-pager of original art by 2 epic creators. Grand Comics Database says Victor is modeled on Julius Schwartz. Check the album and compare. Boltinoff's credits are not given on the page, so they must have been noted someplace else. The whole page is in the album. No particular art callouts except for the Signal Corps patch on the shoulder of the soldier on panel 2. This could entirely be a true story. Short, sweet, to the point, a rare one page. 2 thumbs up.
Co-host Killjoy. 2 thumbs up is when both Siskel and Ebert approve of a film at the same time. Ha! That being said, this brief little tale is both unintentionally and comedically grim. What with the expression of the newly arrived bird's face as Powell wraps his paw around its avian frame while referring to himself as a pigeon fancier. Funny, I never saw that one on the racks next to Cat Fancy in the newsroom. To the final panel where that same poor pigeon is being actively murdered by a hawk in full brightly colored view, right up close where we can see the "oh, what a day I'm having" look on its poor, pitiful puss. So in other words, I liked it. Now we have 2 thumbs up, Rich. But up where?
Just gonna leave that one alone. So APO Weird War Tales still hasn't been getting much mail. So this is another text piece from Bob Rozakis reviewing more books. The Trial of Adolf Hitler by Philippe van Rynst. That's probably Dutch. Hitler fakes his death, goes into hiding, and reveals himself 25 years later. The Court Martial of George Armstrong Custer by Douglas C. Jones. Custer survives Little Bighorn and is court-martialed. And Blizzard by George Stone. A blizzard stalls over the east coast of the U.S. and the snow piles up. Are the Russians responsible? I haven't read any of them, but me being alternate history nerd, I'm certainly game for the first 2.
All right, up next, folks, we are moving over to the Daily Planet Extra insert, as we often do for one reason or another. And we're taking a look at the Hembeck strip that Rich often adds to the Grand Comics database here. This time around, we got your standard 3-panel Hembeck strip with a reporter or an interviewer of some kind saying, "Pardon me, but why are you wearing that dead man costume?" And a rather dumpy, schlubby looking guy in a dead man costume and white body paint says, "I'm the older brother of Boston and Cleveland Brand." The reporter asks, "Oh, and what's your name?" "Hackensack Brand." So there you go. So again, not much to it, but I always find a way to make something out of these strips. Now, as he mentioned in the strip, Cleveland Brand was an actual DC Comics character who first appeared in Strange Adventures number 211 back in 1968. He stepped in for his twin brother as the new Dead Man Trapeze Act after Boston was murdered. Funny how Boston just happened to have a twin who was also good enough at acrobatics to do a high-risk, no-net trapeze act in his place, eh? As for Hackensack, of course, he's the dumpier, likely dumber, only made up for this strip older brother with a funny-sounding name linked to a supposedly dumpier, likely dumber city than his younger twin siblings. Is Hackensack an older city than the other two? And why Hackensack when Hoboken Brand is objectively funnier and has that nice repeating B sound? Alas, we may never know the answers to those questions, especially not to the first one, because I'm not the one who does that kind of research on this show.
And I don't care enough to do it. Not that particular nugget anyway. Okay, so we're going to have a little bit of a back and forth right here real quick. It's like I made a comment before about how Hembeck should release a collection of all the strips that he did in the DC books. And I thought he already had. The nearly complete Essential Hembeck Archives Omnibus came out in 2008 and is over 900 pages long. And I thought that surely all these DC strips would probably be in there. But
yeah, they're not. But I mean, it's just because Hembeck put out so much stuff that wasn't published by Marvel or DC in his independent efforts. So I have it, of course. I've taken it to Hembeck's table. And he was like, "Did you read all of this? Did you need glasses before you started?" Because a lot of the text is really small, too. And he packed his strips with a lot of text, his independent stuff. It's not as brief. Like, they're not like these Hembeck strips at all. They're quite verbose in his independently published material. So that one contains none of his official Marvel or DC work. Some of his Marvel work has been reproduced. And like Fred Hembeck Destroys the Marvel Universe and things like that. So Marvel's done a better job of reprinting Hembeck's contributions than DC by far. So kudos to them. All right, here we go. Moving on from Hembeck, we are going to go to our spotlighted ads for this issue. We recently covered an issue about undead space Indians, And that caused me to wax nostalgic about the Indian Village amusement park in Lake George, New York on that same episode. So why not follow up with some great snacking and great trekking? This is a half-page ad with that tagline printed in big red block letters across the top of it. And the text follows up to say, you can track the lifestyle of 8 Indian tribes of North America in authentic detail with this new Indian lore guide. Just turn the wheel and it's all there. Iroquois, Pueblo, Apache, Navajo, Blackfoot, Seminole, Paiute, and Cree, right at your fingertips. And just as these tribes of Indians took their dried meats along to travel light on long hunting trips, you can take along Lowry's smoky and delicious beef snacks on your exploring trips. They're great for any activity you're into. There's a little picture below of the various cans and packets of Lowry's dried meats, which I've never heard of. And then to the right is the star attraction here. It's a little cutout coupon that says, get this authentic Indian lore guide, only 25 cents with proof of purchase from Lowry's Beef Snacks, a division of, I get this, Beatrice Foods Company. It just sounds all so homey. From Denver, Colorado, 80209. So this order back, but to the far right of the image is a drawing of this wheel. And yeah, you've got the various tribe names, and when you spin the wheel, there's a few details of Indian lore that are revealed. And from the drawing of the wheel, you have their common dwelling, a drawing of that, like something they would live in, like a teepee or whatever it is. And then common foods eaten by that tribe, and then where they were located, the locale. So for the Navajo, it says Southwest. We're in the late 70s here, and spotlighting the Native Americans and their culture was kind of a thing back then. You had the ads for, you call it corn, we call it maize. And I'm not here to say that all that stuff aged really well, but it was definitely a thing going on in the later 70s. Nice to see that's just keeping on trucking here. So, hey, great snacking and great tracking, folks. What you got, Rich?
Dude, Lowry's kind of sounds like a truck stop or something in the deep south. It's like, I mean, yeah, same thing. I've never heard of any of this stuff. I was entertaining using selecting this one as my ad, but at the end of the day, I had to do Wonder Woman Saves the Astronauts, an 8-panel Hostess fruit pie ad. And actually, this wasn't the original ad I selected. I went with a Hubba Bubba gum fighting ad, almost reluctantly at first. But once I started analyzing the fruit pie ad, I knew I had to change it up. You got a space shuttle type craft with 2 astronauts lost in space, calling for help. Losing radio contact. Rocks and dust wiping out screen. Can't locate Earth. Can't locate. Wonder Woman hops into the invisible jet and takes off. Great Hera, how can we guide them back to Earth? What signal can we get through? I know. I'll drop something they're familiar with. She gets into space, opens her canopy, and starts throwing out Hostess fruit pies. Inside the shuttle, the astronauts see the trail of the fruit pies. Look, real cherry filling, real apple filling, tender light crust too. You can only get them on Earth. Let's follow them down. And it's a 3-wide trail of fruit pies floating in space. Last panel, the astronauts are back on Earth, home sweet home, eating fruit pies and thanking Wonder Woman and the great attraction of Hostess fruit pies, finishing with the classic, you get a big delight in every bite of Hostess fruit pies. The last time I picked a Hostess ad was to slag on a Wonder Woman appearance, and here I am again. She'd already taken off when she got the idea to use fruit pies to guide the astronauts home. So she had a cargo bay already filled with these things, and you just open your canopy in outer space with no space helmet or anything on. And you have a 3-wide trail of them all nice and neat, end-to-end, guiding them back to Earth. I am impressed all to hell with the cargo capacity of the invisible jet, hauling enough fruit pies to pave a trail in the stars back home. Where's Woodsy Owl when you need him? Give a hoot, don't pollute. And for the perspective of the fruit pies looking out the windscreen, just how big are they? For proper scale, they'd be massive. And the jet couldn't carry many. Physics! Still, you just have to run at these Hostess ads from time to time. These Wonder Woman Hostess ads have been absolutely incredible.
So, hey, folks, you made it. That's it. We're done with this issue. We've squeezed every last drop out of it that we possibly can, except I think the two of us might have some last words.
Holy slam dunk, Batman. 4 for 4. Add a cool intro page and an ad I could mock. Again, the worst thing about this book was a Joe Kubert cover that was still pretty cool. Definite keeper, top quarter of the stack. Give me the salty old guy in the first story for the overall win. But like I said, they all won on some level.
Yeah, I also lean toward the opening story, but I'm not sure how much of that lean is provided by my imaginary Old Man Eternity comic book series. However, as Rich said, this whole issue was great, so every story gets a medal, I say. Participation trophies all around. It's a damn fine and fun issue. So there you go, folks. Now we're done with the comic book. We're entering the scuttlebutt. You know the drill here. We have a Facebook page. Guess what it's called? Rich runs it, so it's good. We have merch on redbubble.com. Our logo, drawn and designed by Bill Walco, is amazing. You go to Redbubble, get that logo put on a piece of merch. You get the merch, you send a picture of it to the Facebook page via Facebook Messenger. You'll get a Sam Star. You'll want one. Very soon, I promise, I will finish uploading videos to YouTube, and then you have no excuse. You can listen to all of our episodes on YouTube and not even have to look at us the whole time. So how much more do you want, really? Okay? That's my part of the scuttlebutt. Now here comes the fun part of the scuttlebutt.
Replug Volume 10. Got to admit, this feature went longer than I thought it would. This is probably the last one of these, unless we can remember another shop that sees our shadows once in a while. Zombie Planet, 1238 Central Avenue, Albany, New York. www.zombie-planet.com. They specialize in role-playing games, miniature games, collectible and non-collectible card games, and have a large assortment of historical and fantasy sci-fi board games, as well as a wide selection of comic books, comic supplies, and graphic novels and novelty toys, action figures, and statues. 2 stories of fun near Colony Center. Check them out on Facebook. And let voting for the 2026 listener-selected Intel Report Special Mission continue. The official selections: Fanboy 4, Luftwaffe 1946, Eden Frost, What If 71, Bombshells, Doctor Who, Kronos Commandos, We Stand on Guard, Cat Shit 1, The Dark and Bloody, Warbirds, Hill Hunters, Super Soldier Man of War, Baltimore Cold Dead War, The Crow, Silver Lake, Alien Armageddon 44, What Were They Thinking, and Earth Divers. Details in the Intel Report album. As always, if the fans decide to coordinate and select a book from outside this time period, your wishes will be honored. Vote early, vote often on the FB page, or message us. Not very many of you have so far. We'll keep the post of the selections pinned on the FB page. So what's left? The only thing that can be left. The teaser. They said it couldn't be done. Or perhaps it shouldn't. Weird Warriors podcast turns 5 years old. May the 4th be with you. 106 episodes. And what better way to celebrate than with a special mission? I've been harping on Max to do a specific Road Warriors trip for a while now. Stay tuned. And this is another way to poke him into doing it. Be on the lookout for unmarked helicopters. And join us next time for another overdue addition to our classified files. The X-Files. Number 17. Pigs 1 Killjoy. Scully and Mulder are on the case.
So are we. Bring your flashlights. There might be a darkened warehouse or two. I've seen like 4 episodes of The X-Files, and they all had a darkened warehouse and flashlights. So that's all I know about the TV show anyway. All right, so what else do I know? I know that this is the end of the show, folks. What show is this? It's the Weird Warriors podcast show. You know, the one you've been listening to all this time. Who am I? Well, I'm Max. He's Rich. The two of us are the Weird Warriors. We are also the Batlin Bros, and we host something called the Weird Warriors podcast, as I mentioned. And what kind of podcast is that, folks? Well, it's a podcast on which Rich and I promise to make war.
No more.